Anchors up, sales at full. Welcome to the SloopCast. How are you doing today, Kyle?
Doing pretty well, Jared. How are you doing? It's been a while.
Whenever we take a singular week off, it feels like two, because it kind of is two.
It is two, technically.
Kinda. But it always feels like three is the point. All right.
Got it.
It's a new tradition. It's a good tradition. Hold on. Oh, wait a minute. Couldn't get my fingers under. This one's on there tight. Okay, there we go. Kyle, I've broken. No, the tradition, good tradition. I have broken a tradition, however. No, I've broken it. No, it's tradition. My nails are fine, but I broke a tradition. I was drinking Ohio beer on the podcast. We have gone West Virginia on this one, however. Kyle and I took a trip to West Virginia a couple weekends back. Hit up the local breweries. This one's a Free Folk. The Free Folk Brewery. Fayetteville, West Virginia. Good brewery. Yeah, it's very good.
It is a great name.
Great tap room too. Like just outside Fayetteville, or I guess might still be in Fayetteville, but it's just outside like the town center, the main street of. Yeah. We had fun, and it's time, however, to get right to the meat of the show. And Kyle, we're doing an AskSloopCast episode where the users ask us questions. This is how you know I don't edit the podcast, because if I did, I would have edited out the part where I messed it up and then kept in the part where I tried again and got it right.
Yes, you do. All right, let's go right into it. It's the main picture. It's the main graph that Jared created. When should Ryan Day announce the starting quarterback for Ohio State?
I'd like to see it done before the season. I don't want to go into the season with two quarterbacks. I think we did it last year. I mean, I know we did it last year, but I think it was kind of a farce because McCord always got more snaps, and McCord always got the starting snaps. It always felt like a farce. It always kind of felt like they were maybe just trying to keep pushing McCord more than it was Devin Brown had a realistic chance of being the number one quarterback. And in retrospect, it's very easy to say that we should have taken that as a warning, that they felt the need to keep pushing McCord. I don't know, Kyle, what do you think? When do you want to see it done?
We've seen it. We've seen it all over the place, Jared. We've seen it all over where they announced it during spring camp. Seen it where it was the first week of fall camp.
Sure.
And even like the day of the first game of the season. Me personally, I'd say at the end of week one in fall camp, at the end of the first week, the quarterbacks, the main quarterback's been announced. Then you get familiarity with the snap count. You get familiar with the cadence. That's the word I was looking for. Cadence of the quarterback, and just feel the flow of everything. And you get accustomed, and everybody just what's the word I want to use?
Familiarity.
Yeah.
Get some familiarity, get some confidence in their guy. That's your leader on the field. And yeah, I was getting ready to disagree with you, Kyle. You said after week one, and I was about, what? No, we got to do it before the season. And then you're like, of spring camp or of fall camp. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I think that's I agree. Like no further. And I'm talking like max no further than like the end of like halfway through camp. That would be my take on it. Like if you hit the halfway point of camp and you don't have a quarterback yet, that's cause for concern.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, I was agreeing. Like they got it. They got to name it here. This isn't one of those where you got two elite quarterbacks going at it. It's you got. This just isn't that year. This just isn't that year. You got
CJ Stroud's not coming through that door.
Yeah, you got to name one sooner than later. There, this is just that kind of year.
I agree. All right, Kyle. Next question. What do you got?
All right. What Ohio State record is most likely to be broken this year?
What Ohio State is that? Is that another Esquire one, by the way?
That is, yes.
Buckeye Esquire, who is currently in the chat. Say hi, Buckeye Esquire. Yeah, record most likely to be broken. I don't know. See, here's the thing. If I'm gonna like do like modern era, because sometimes it's hard to compete with stats that were formed like before Korea. But I wonder if we could hit some sort of like, and total points is tough too, because there's so many more games now, but like points per game. I really think this defense is going to be that type of crazy, and it's going to have to be an average, because, you know, Ohio State teams used to play like 8 games or 10 games or whatever. So again, it would have to be like points per game, or maybe yards per game, something along those lines. But I seriously wonder if a stat like that is within reach. I don't know what that stat would be off the top of my head. I didn't prep for any of these questions and like going into these questions as blind as possible. So yeah, I was trying to give like a raw answer. So I didn't, like I said, if I had prepped it, I may have looked that up, but that's one of the first thing that pops into my head.
Yeah, my first thought was going to be, I don't know what the record is here, but maybe I think you're alluding to it. Defensive points per game.
From points allowed.
Yeah, points allowed per game.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, I think the per game is a very important marker there for reasons I already said. I don't see any big offensive numbers being set this year. You have running backs splitting carries. You're going to have rookie wide receiving records, or rather freshman wide receiver receiving records might be interesting. Interceptions per season, Esquire says. Man, I know I'm hyping up the defense real hard right now, but I'm just going to answer that. The first response that popped into my head was, I don't know how many opportunities they're going to get at interceptions. Like, interceptions are such a anomaly that if you're playing really, really good defense, that you're almost like reducing your turnover statistics simply because you aren't getting as many plays done against you. And especially if the offense is going to be as run heavy as I expect this year, like, I feel like we're going to see a very way more so than any other Ryan Day team so far. We're going to see a very clock control, possession control. Like, it's going to be a very different Buckeye team we're going to see this year. Who will be the run stop stud? I feel like we have a bunch of beasts right down the middle. I think Cody Simon's right there. I think
here's the record, Jared. Here is the easiest record. Put money down.
Okay.
Put money down on it. And who was it? It's you're talking about like something about the freshman here. No Ohio State player. No Ohio State true freshman wide receiver.
Okay.
Has more than 500 reception yards in a season.
Ooh, that's breakable.
The best was Chris Carter with 476.
That's breakable. That's very breakable.
30,
that's our answer.
Here, 32 receptions, 476 yards, and 7 touchdowns for Chris Carter his freshman year.
I think Jeremiah Smith can easily break 2 of those. Touchdowns are just weird. Touchdowns sometimes happen, sometimes don't happen. Who knows? Well, but the receptions and the yards,
the amount of talent in that wide receiver room, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Chop Daddy says over. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm taking over on 2 of those for sure. How about throwing a touchdown to that unit of a punter? Maybe. 6'7" rugby player. I wouldn't listen. I try it in practice. I feel like we got plenty of good tight ends, but I'd try it in try it in practice. All right, Kyle, what's our next question? We settled on a good Jeremiah Smith answer on that one.
Yeah. All right. What statistical category, not directly connected to points, will be the most detrimental of the success of this season?
So, determinative, I assume. My
weak answer is third down conversion.
I don't think that's a weak answer.
I think that was something Ohio State struggled at times last year.
Yeah,
was third down, and you got 2 studs of running backs in the backfield there. You still got an elite wide receiver core there. Like there's your third down conversion needs to be so much higher. I'm gonna look what their third down conversion was last year.
You do that. I'm going to address something in the chat real quick. You guys are talking about the new Aussie punt, or not the new Aussie. We were talking about the new Aussie punter, and now you're talking about a transfer portal guy that came in. He's a preferred walk-on. So yeah, take him. It doesn't go against the numbers. Take him. That's always an easy take. That just is what that is.
Well, Ohio State was better than I thought. They were 32nd in the nation at 42.9% third down conversion.
Well, I think maybe what you're thinking about is like specifically short yardage. The short yardage conversions was bad
for me to.
Yeah, you're not going to find that quickly by any means just by Googling it. To me, and if I can't, I'm trying not to go too obvious, like as far as like a determinative stat goes. Try, because it would be too easy to be like yards per play or yards per play against. Here's one. Completion percentage. I think the defense is going to be great. I think we'll run the ball fine. How efficient is the passing game going to be? I think is a huge deal. I think another one you could probably do would be like plays for a loss, which would, plays for a loss would help us determine, would be pretty determinative of the quality of the offensive line, if that makes sense. So, where do you place nationally? And I don't know like yards for, or plays for a loss. I don't know like a good number for that would be over the course of a season or even a game. I don't have that scale in my head, but be in the top third of that in college football this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal a popular Tom Orr stat. Median rush per game. Maybe. See, here's the problem with that stat. That stat can be not self-determinative. I'm not sure what the correct term there to use. A lot of times you see the stat of, oh, when so-and-so team runs the ball X number of times per game, their winning percentage is 750. But the problem with that stat is that when you're winning, you run the ball more to reduce the clock. So that's, you have your chicken and your egg backwards on that a lot of the times. That's my problem with the run the ball a lot means you win, form of statistics. I think we struggled downfield, so we'll be doing a lot of greater than 20-yard throws. I think I'm honestly not sure what the passing game is going to look like this year. Because it's not going to be like the typical Ryan Day passing game. Oh, less than 20. Gotcha. I don't think it's going to be your typical Ryan Day passing game. What I'm not sure of is if they try to go like high percentage short yardage. And I think a lot of it will be determined by how good the offensive line is, obviously, and how good the running game is. But I could almost see them going like old school football and be like pound rock, pound rock, pound rock, throw deep. Pound rock, pound rock, pound rock, pound rock, throw deep, like some old school football. I think that's possible, but I also think it's possible they just go like hyper West Coast with it and shoot for percentage, completion percentage, even if it's only, 4, 5, 6 yards at a time. I could see either. I don't have a hard read on what the offense is, but I don't think you can run like the traditional Ryan Day offense this year unless one of these two quarterbacks surprise me. Again, neither of these guys are CJ Stroud or Justin Fields. They don't have to be. So not the average, but middle-most rush, meaning we're not boom bust rushing. Need to hit a consistent. Oh, I thought you meant like you said rush, median rush per game, not rushes. I pluralized rush when I said it. So I read that as rushes per game, which is a lot different than what you intended, which was median rush per game. That totally changes what you said. Yeah, I think that's interesting because like where's the medium? I think it's a good. Once again, that Tom Moore great because sometimes an average can really be thrown off by a couple big runs, but the median will better tell you what the overall vibe of the running game is for a game.
Yep, exactly.
Okay, I think it's time to move on to a new question. However, before we do that, let's move on to a quick commercial break. If you're listening to this on the regular podcast feed, you'll be hearing a quick commercial. But if you want to avoid those commercials, you can sign up at Patreon, patreon.thesloopcast.com. And there, for $3 a month or $32 a year, you can avoid these commercials, get premium access to the Discord server. A lot of cool benefits available to you over patreon.thesloopcast.com. Here's that commercial break now. Esquire says, for popping off 4 yards per rush regularly, play action will be indefensible with our wide receivers. Yeah, I agree. Which is kind of what I was saying, like about the, boom, 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 over top, pound it, pound it, pound it, go over top. Like it's some old school NFL run the rock, throw in an occasional play action bomb down the field. And I agree. I think that'd be incredibly hard to defend with our wide receivers. And it would give it a, if our offensive line isn't great at pass blocking this year, and I don't know that they will be, the play action will help to sort of suck in the defensive line, which could help out with the pass blocking a great deal. All right, Kyle, what question you got next?
All right. When should Ryan Day announce a definitive starting offensive line?
Transfer portal's closed. We aren't getting that tackle we were hoping for. No one went into the portal during the spring that Ohio State wanted. I mean, technically, Proctor went back to Alabama, but everyone knew he was going to Bama before he ever went into the portal. And of course, Ohio State would have taken him, but that was already determined. So that doesn't count. But it's not like Ohio State missed on the big, and even if you include the original portal, there weren't, outside of like a couple guys, there weren't offensive tackles in the portal to go get this portal, these past two portal sessions. So the offensive line, I think we know who the starting five is. When should that be announced?
I don't think it's as important as the quarterback.
No, I don't either. But yeah, I think you do want the guys all practicing together. I think that's important.
Yeah.
But I think we already know who the starting offensive line is.
Yeah.
And if you want to know who that is, we did a depth chart prediction show just 2 episodes back. Maybe 3 episodes back, but recently. You can go see our full thoughts in that episode.
All right. Who is a player that no one is really talking about that you particularly like/feel like they have a big role this year?
Who I think they have a big role this year. Kyle, do you have an answer right off the top of your head? I think I have one.
That's tough because I feel most people know most of the starters already, so it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to,
especially on the defense.
Yeah, it's hard to pick. It's hard to pick somebody.
I got one.
Go ahead.
TC Caffey, walk-on running back. He's potentially the number 3 running back on the team right now. Ohio State has some scholarships available. I wouldn't be shocked if Caffey gets. I kind of expect Caffey to get one of those scholarships. Like I said, as it looks right now, he's probably the number 3 running back. And if they go run hard, then there's a real decent chance he gets a lot of play this year.
I think I'm going to go out of left field here a little bit, Jared.
That's the premise of the question, isn't it?
I'm going to go with
Didn't DeSantis get moved into guard chop?
I'm going to go with Will Kaczmarek, the tight end.
Yeah, I think so. And I think even with the time he'll get, he'll still be underappreciated because I think he'll be very interior, or not interior, maybe interior, but he's going to be very block heavy. McClarty is the answer, fellas. I mean, maybe the giant. I think we already have a Discord favorite player, Kyle. It's the quote unquote freshman from Australia, the punter. What is he, like 6'6" or something crazy like that?
I'm gonna have to look to see how tall he is, but yeah, he's ridiculously tall.
Yeah, he's a big fella. I think he might already be one of our Discord server favorites. I think another guy to keep an eye out on. Chop says 6'7", 255. It's a big boy.
That sounds about right.
And a lot of, I have another name, depending upon the health of the players in front of him and around him. Inky Jones, kid from Steubenville, Ohio. And he's another walk-on player at the safety role. might be another guy who gets a surprising, even if it's special teams, might get a lot of field time this year who you aren't expecting. G-Dam. I like how, anyway, G-Dam power forward playing punter. The roster kicks so much ass. Yeah.
Big dude.
Very big dude.
All right. Ohio State is 5 scholarships under the limit. Where do the remaining scholarships go?
So Ohio State did bring in some walk-on players in the portal. They did not add any scholarship players this portal session. I don't believe, right? I'm not mistaken in that. But they brought in several preferred walk-ons who come from like decent schools, right? MAC schools, like kids who walked away from scholarships to walk on at Ohio State. You could certainly see some of them going there. I already brought up Inky Jones at safety. I already brought up TC Caffey at running back, I think, are 2 guys. Patrick Gerd at tight end, maybe another guy who is going to be very blocking centric, maybe even more of a fullback than a tight end at times. I think those are 3 guys who are currently walk-ons on the team who could get. Need to talk about Thurman, surprise player. I think people, I mean, the nerds among us know who Thurman is. I would say he came in very highly recruited. The casual fans might not know who Julian Thurman is yet. I think him getting on the field is going to require him getting a bit of size and a bit of blocking. And he has, especially in this offense, which I think, again, will be more run focused than we've seen Ryan Day offenses in the past.
Yep.
I don't know if a pass catching tight end is a guy who's going to get on the field a ton at this point. Jelani.
Right,
thank you. Jelani.
All right, all right. Who is the most underappreciated Buckeye since 2000?
Whoa, Kyle, we only gave out 3 scholarships.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that I can't do math.
We need to give out 2 more. I gave out 3. You got 2 more?
I don't offhand. I don't. I'm not prepared for this question.
That's fair. I will Esquire wants one. Let's, I don't know, just sort of going through a list here. Oh, Jaden Fleming, or excuse me, Fielding.
Yeah.
Who was the place kicker last year, still technically isn't under scholarship. I think that's such an obvious answer that it escaped both of us because we kind of just expect him to get a scholarship. He technically doesn't have one yet. Who would the 5th one go to? Is a question. Chop Daddy in the chat said Kobe Wilson.
Give it to Herb Street's boy.
No. We already gave one to a tight end.
We did.
We already gave one to a tight end. David Adolph had one of the best spring games at wide receiver. He was almost like our spring game star. Just saying. We could give one to punter Joe McGuire, who was.
We can give one to I know you mentioned a kicker already, but the senior kicker out of Groveport, Ohio, Austin Snyder.
Sure. Sure.
All right, there's the 5.
I'm not touching that question.
Who's the most underappreciated Buckeye since 2000?
That's a lot of guys. I think Evan Spencer deserves a shout out there. A lot, when we talk about like the Ohio State playoff run, we rightfully bring up Zeke Elliott, and we rightfully bring up that offensive line, and we rightfully bring up Cardell Jones. Evan Spencer played a huge role in that 3-game stretch, counting the Big Ten title game and into the, he made a double block on one of Zeke's big runs against Alabama. He threw a touchdown pass. I don't know that Evan Spencer's name is brought up enough when discussing that team and everything that they did, quite frankly.
You're gonna maybe like me for this pick, Jared.
Okay.
I'm going with a slob here. More specifically a center. Corey Linsley.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I mean, the offensive line in general, tends to get overlooked. I mean, again, if you think about how terrible they looked at Virginia Tech versus how dominant they looked during that 3-game stretch, like that entire unit deserves like the most improved award, in my opinion. And like all time, and not just of the season, but like of all time. They showed tremendous growth. You have an answer, Kyle? Most underappreciated Buckeye of the past 20 plus years?
I did say.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Should we broaden the scope away from just the national title game? I think we brought up several guys who I felt like were underappreciated during our all-day team, which was our previous episode. I love Kenny Guyton, but like he didn't play that much, if we're being honest. When he did, it was vitally important, for sure. I often wonder where like Terrell Pryor belongs in this conversation, because he was special on the field, but what happened off the field is of course noted. So like it's a complicated legacy, let's say. I think JT Barrett also has kind of a complicated legacy. He holds all these records, but I don't think there's definitely a mixed overall feeling about JT Barrett's legacy at Ohio State, I would say. 15 seasons though, exactly.
I may be wrong here, but you talk about, whenever you talk about Ohio State wide receivers, you think about the elite players, Michael Thomas, Wilson, and Marvin Harrison Jr. But one name who has his name in the record books in a lot of places that doesn't get a lot of recognition to a lot of the elite wide receivers Ohio State has had in the last 10, 15 years here. Yeah, KJ Hill.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think KJ Hill gets enough love for what he did at Ohio State.
All right. Pick 5 players to represent the different regions for the NCAA 25 cover.
So we got like some sort of deluxe edition cover, which had Donovan Edwards, but also like a bunch of players on it. And there's been rumor that the standard edition NCAA game will have multiple regional covers. And I picked the number 5 out of a hat. Like I just made that up. So 5 players from 5 different areas. Chat, feel free to play along with this one. I think with Donovan Edwards being on the cover of the Deluxe Edition, like he's the front and center guy there. Does that make him more or less likely to like represent the Midwest region? Or is like, no, he got the Deluxe Edition. We'll give it to...
I think it's less likely. I tend
to agree. I think they'll spread it around. I would say the problem is if like, you're like, oh, we definitely need to get an Ohio State guy on the cover just because money, right? Like putting an Ohio State guy on the cover, money. If you're on a deluxe, you shouldn't be on original. I would say, especially if you're front and center on the deluxe. I'd say part of the problem with putting an Ohio State player on the cover right now is that from a national perspective, who is that guy? Because like as Ohio State fans, we'd be like, oh, Jack Sawyer, Caleb Downs, we have a lot of ideas of who it should be, but you have to keep in mind that for the most part, being on the cover is kind of like getting the Heisman. It's mostly going to be quarterbacks.
I think there's 3. I think there's 3 off the top of my head that are really obvious in my mind. Quinn Ewers, you go over to Texas area. I think in the Southeast, Carson Beck.
I think so, yeah.
And Dylan Gabriel out in the West.
Yeah, I will say both Beck and Ewers are not front and center like Donovan Edwards, but they're both on the Deluxe Edition cover. So is the Deluxe Edition cover a preview for what the Sanders probably will be on it, as unjustified as that is. Marketing, yeah, it'll push units. I saw someone recently call Deion Sanders the Lamar Ball of college football, and I haven't been able to get it out of my head ever since. Luther Burden, I think, is a good option, actually. The problem is that it's Missouri, and Missouri doesn't push units. I think he's deserving. I think he's a fantastic player. I don't think that they're going to be leaping to put a Missouri player on the cover.
No. And that's why I was going with high profile.
Right. 100%.
Teams.
Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers. And I think that hurts Ohio State. They don't have like a quarterback right now. They don't have a singular run. Like if we'd done this last year, it would have been Marvin Harrison. 100%.
You know who should be, because of like, he got a lot of great publicity because of how hardworking he was, and like just a hard-nosed football kind of guy, and is now transferring to a high level, a high blue chip
red
team.
Chip.
Well, they're gold.
We've had this discussion before.
Riley
blue
Leonard.
Chip and blue blood
Yeah.
is a basketball terminology, because all the good teams in basketball are blue, but all the good teams in football are red.
Riley Leonard.
Yeah. They're not going to put Travis Hunter on the cover.
So those would be
they'd rather put Sanders on there because he has the name Sanders and he's a quarterback. Again, so the cover is like, for the most part, it's going to be like the Heisman, where it's going to be a quarterback, or running back, or a wide receiver almost all the time.
So those are my 4. I would have to find a 5th one. So I have Beck, Ewers, Gabriel, and Leonard. I'd have to find a 5th one somewhere.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's probably Donovan Edwards. It's just hard not to pick all quarterbacks.
All quarterbacks, yes.
But that's because you're thinking like a marketing person. Because, I mean, let's go back and look at all the Madden covers. I mean, let's not actually do that, but just like do it in your head for a second. it's mostly quarterbacks.
Mm-hmm.
How many defensive players have we seen on the cover of Madden? Ray Lewis, because what an anomaly he was. Troy Polamalu shared one with a wide receiver, but he shared it with a wide receiver.
Only 3.
Ooh, who's the third one?
Ray Lewis. Who was the second one you said?
Troy Polamalu shared it.
Yeah. Yep. He shared with Fitzpatrick. Yes. Or Fitzpatrick. Fitzgerald.
Yes.
Richard Sherman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Richard Sherman was super marketable, though.
He was.
So I'm just saying, like, of course,
all
there's
3 of those guys were.
right. Troy Polamalu is still doing commercials. He's been retired for a while now. The Legion of Boom was marketable. Yeah, they won the Super Bowl. Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Denzel Burke on the cover gave it to me. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, us as like Ohio State fans and Ohio State nerds, we could, I think, Jack Sawyer or Denzel Burke or Caleb Downs, but just like Ohio State doesn't have like a highly marketable offensive player to stick on the cover this year.
Yeah. I mean, pick a 5th one. Who would you think should be the 5th one?
I mean, we're lacking, if we're saying it's not Donovan Edwards because he's front and center on the deluxe.
If we're doing regionals, we're missing a East. We're missing East Coast.
Well, and that's where Riley Leonard comes in. He's a Notre Dame quarterback. That's marketable. That's your Midwest and your East. We have a West Coast. We have a South Central. It's Aller. Is it?
Let's do the. He had a great show out west. Moving out east. Let's just make it Ward. Quarterback down in Miami. Transferred to Miami.
I don't think so. I think Riley Leonard is probably that guy. He's the quarterback at Notre Dame. He has enough hype around him.
Okay.
If not, it would be Donovan Edwards. If not, it would probably be Drew Aller. But I don't know who. I love Drew Aller, and his struggles so far I put squarely on the coaching staff at Penn State. Just so we're clear, I would have loved to have seen him with a good coaching staff that knows how to develop a quarterback. Unfortunately, he went to Penn State.
All right. Next question. After this ad break, we're going to take a quick break and get back to our final questions. So here are some ads.
And we're back. Kyle, what questions we still got?
If you could add any coach in America to this staff, who would it be?
I have an immediate answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hold on. Does it have to be from college? Because I might not have.
Does not specify.
Okay.
What do you say, Esquire? Esquire's typing here. Let's say yes.
Forgot to exclude Nick Saban. Scott Huff. Scott Huff was the offensive line coach for Washington the last few years. He followed the rest of the coaching staff to Alabama, but then a couple months later took a job with the Seahawks. But I think he's one of the best offensive line coaches that has been in college football the past few years. So that's who I want. Scott Huff, who I believe is in Seattle. I know he was at Alabama for a few months, then went to the NFL. I think it was Seattle. That would be my guy. Austin, was that your guy too? I would want Kyle Flood.
I was thinking Flood. Flood was my first one. I was thinking as well. Either Flood or I mean, he's done really well. Maybe who did you say, Jared, was yours?
Scott Huff, who was the offensive line coach at Washington the past few years.
Okay, either Flood or even Joe Moore. I think Moore's had some really good offensive line going into the NFL.
Yeah. I think Kyle Flood's also a good answer. I think you're bringing in another offensive coordinator, though. I think is maybe a problem. Bringing in like a 3rd/4th. I would take Sherrone Moore as the O-line coach. Because he's going to get fucked out of the scrum job. Yeah, I think so too. He's being set up to fail in Michigan right now. He is the Michigan fall guy right now. But I'm going to stick with my answer. I like my answer. I don't want to bring like an offensive coordinator in because I feel like that might complicate things. So I'm going to stick with Scott Huff.
All right, I'm going to post this in the chat here. Per Vegas, the following teams are most likely to win the national title this season. Per Vegas, which of these teams will have the worst season?
Okay,
so Georgia's at 300, Ohio State 450, Texas 750, Oregon at 850, then Alabama, LSU, and Ole Miss in the thousands, Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame, Florida State in the 2000s, and then Clemson and Tennessee 3000.
Kyle, back in February, I believe it was in February, we did a Know Your Enemy offseason edition for Michigan. We both had Michigan going, 500?
I mean, yeah, then that would be Michigan here then.
I also do not get the constant hype around Tennessee. I also don't think Clemson is... The moment that was Clemson is over. I'm sorry. The Clemson moment has come and passed. Dabo had a great run of quarterbacks that has not replicated itself. He had 2 amazing coordinators, and he's yet to replace them. He refuses to use the transfer portal. I saw a crazy stat. Kyle, I'm going to try and do this off the top of my head. I don't have the stat in front of me. There were 4 teams who did not bring in a transfer portal player in the year 2024.
All right.
Name those 4 teams. I already gave you one of them.
Michigan.
No. Clemson.
Yes, Clemson.
Who are the other 3?
God, I don't know.
It's very obvious. It's very obvious if you think about it. And all 3 of those teams share a very important thing in common.
Florida State?
No. Florida State brought in a bunch of transfer players. Who brought in transfer players?
I thought so.
It's super obvious if you think about it. Yeah, Colorado.
It's Colorado.
Esquire got it.
Service academies.
Yep. Army, yes. Navy, and Air Force. They're not allowed to. Well, also, if a player did transfer there, they are a part of the military now. Like they have. It's you're not just going there to play football. It's a little bit more of a commitment than is allotted.
Looking at these odds, I think Florida State Clemson is fine where they're at. I think I don't think they have the teams this year to win it all. So I think them having that kind of rating per Vegas, I think is fine.
If you look at our AskSloopCast questions, Duncan followed that question up with a pretty decent question where he essentially says, well, just like who's going to be the worst or who's going to fail the most based off of expectations. So like there's two answers: who's going to be the worst team and who's going to miss expectations the most. So I think those are two questions, you're going to get two separate answers out of that. If we weight this based off of where they're sitting, I really have to wonder how good Alabama's going to be. Because again, if we're going by Vegas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, compared to say Michigan, who is, 9th/10th.
Their out of schedule conference is
some of
at Wisconsin.
The same words, but in a different order. Sure.
Is at Wisconsin.
Are we talking about Bama?
Yeah. So let's just do this.
Wait, what week is that?
3.
Week 3 they go to Wisconsin?
Yep. It's not like they're going to play an out of conference in November.
Obviously. But I was just thinking, if that was like week one with a brand new coach, like that makes that game hyper losable. And even in week 3, it's still somewhat losable. But if it was week 1, it makes it hyper losable.
They play Western Kentucky and then South Florida. They're not going to be tested. And then having to go on the road. And Jared jokingly talked about this, where saying that Alabama will never come up north.
And they never did. I said, and he did. At no point did Nick Saban both schedule and play a game in the North. He did play a game at Penn State, but it was scheduled before he got there. And he was technically around when this Wisconsin game was scheduled, but he obviously never made the trip. Nick Saban never played a regular season game above the Mason-Dixon line. Bama's schedule is kind of easy. It says
at Wisconsin,
Austin,
Georgia, at Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma, and Auburn. I think it might be pretty tough for them. I mean, Alabama, I wouldn't say it has the worst season. My odds is still on Michigan.
Right, but again, if we're weighting it based off of expectations, where again, Bama is 5th per Vegas. I still think Michigan has the worst season. Don't get me wrong. Out of all those teams, I think Michigan has the worst season. But if we're weighting it based off of like Bama being 5th and Michigan being 9th, 10th, is that worth like an extra game in the layout? Because if we look at the Bama schedule, Wisconsin's losable, Georgia's losable. I don't think Tennessee is, but Missouri very well could be. LSU could be. Oklahoma could be. But I'm saying could be. Like, I don't think they lose all of those. That they won't lose all of those. I'm seeing 9-3, both Esquire and Austin saying in the chat. I think 9-3 regular season is very. You're talking about Michigan? Nah, Michigan's not going 9-3. Michigan is not going 9-3. No chance. Michigan will fall much harder than that. Kyle, can you put the Michigan schedule in the chat? Let's end the episode on this question. Ain't no way.
Oh, no, I'm going to pull it up real quick here. But what about LSU? What's LSU? What did LSU lose? And can they, with their recruiting, can they make up for the difference of what they've lost? Because we've seen in LSU where they have a really good year and then it drops and it comes back.
I will point out that I believe you did in our way too early predictions. And again, it was supposed to be like it was supposed to be like a wild prediction, right? So granted, yes. It was supposed to be a wild condition when you said this. So I'm not like 100% holding you to this, but you did say LSU wins the SEC. Now, again, that was meant to be a wild prediction and not like a true prediction, but you did say that.
Yeah. All right. Here is, because I saw their schedule, they play at USC, Alabama, and Oklahoma this year. But either way, here is Michigan's schedule.
Yeah. So Texas, they lose. USC, I think they lose. Washington, I think, is an easy loss. Oregon, I think, is an easy loss. Ohio State, I think, is an easy loss. Washington may not be easy. It's at Washington. I shouldn't have said easy. Washington did lose a lot, but so did Michigan. I invite everyone to go back and listen to our Know Your Enemy off-season edition for Michigan. It's gotten worse since then. They've lost way more pieces than they have gained since we recorded that episode. They have a good defense as long as everybody stays healthy. But their offense outside of Loveland and Edwards is a train wreck. And I include the offensive line in that, which has been the backbone. What made Michigan great the past 2 years outside of cheating was their offensive line. They're out of offensive linemen. They are out of wide receivers. They're paper thin on defense. They have a really good starting 11 guys on defense, but they have nothing behind those guys.
But can they go toe to toe going into the fourth quarter with Texas?
No,
with just their starting defense and not being able to rotate in.
That's a huge part of it. You're going to be, an early test in you're not fully in game speed yet because it's your first real game. You're not really game conditioned yet. It's still going to be hot potentially on September 7th. I think they're going to get walloped by Texas. I think Texas is going to obliterate Michigan.
I hope so. Texas goes up to Ann Arbor and just wails on them.
Is it at Ann Arbor?
Actually, let me double check.
I thought it was neutral. Am I wrong? No, nope. It is Ann Arbor.
It is in Ann Arbor.
Thank God. That's such a nice. It's sad when I see a week 2 game against
early odds. Jared, guess what the line is?
Texas -6.5.
3.5.
I'd take it.
Take it.
Hey, Austin, same brain, man. Same brain. We know this already. Well, here's the thing. 3.5 would be the number if it were a neutral site. But it's not.
Yeah.
About to reload DraftKings. Hey man, you've seen my Sloop Picks numbers. Don't be taking my advice on anything.
Over under 49.5.
They're expecting a low scorer. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not saying that they will. Austin is literally about to say Texas will score 42 on their own. Yeah. All right, Kyle. That's the end of the episode. Smash indeed. Do you have anything in Kyle's corner?
Oh gosh, honestly, I haven't really looked. Just because it's been a pretty hectic couple of weekends here, I haven't actually looked at too much of what else was going on that I can talk about in Kyle's corner. So yeah, I don't have much. We are over the hour mark right now.
We can end it.
Yeah, I mean, oh, how about this? How about this? Just because we like to always have a in your face moment to Ann Arbor here. Jesse Owens going to receive a plaque in Ann Arbor.
I mean,
to commemorate Day of Days performance during the 1935 Big Ten championships.
Just to be clear, he isn't receiving it.
Well, yeah. Yes, but there's a plaque in honor of him.
There's
going to be hanging
his estate. His estate will be receiving it. There.
Yes, when is that? The CONCACAF.
We're talking about crew now for the people who aren't soccer folk.
Yes. When is that? When is the championship? The CONCACAF, not the Gold Cup.
Where?
I know.
Come on.
Dead air here.
Dead air, Kyle.
June 1st.
June 1st.
Lot of time still.
Kyle reporting the ghost of Jesse Owens will be descending on Ann Arbor. Bucks by 1 billion come November. Yeah. Indeed. Listen, it would take a lot to get me to go to Ann Arbor, but that would do it. I would bear witness to that. I would in fact bear witness to that. All right. Kyle, anything else?
No, let's go ahead and end it.
Listen, a full eclipse, the Aurora Borealis, Jesse Owens descending on Ann Arbor from above. I don't know if that's the end times or the beginning times, but it's something.
2024 is the year of the Ohio.
Ah, yes. Yes. All right, Kyle, that's the end of the show. Tonight's ending music brought to you by a band called Paper Morning. I think they're from Ohio. I forget where. Whenever I forget, I just always say Columbus. I should probably just say I don't remember, but it might be Columbus. But the name of this band is Paper Morning. So with that being said, I'd like to encourage everyone to drink local beer, listen to local music, and of course, support your local podcasters. Once again, this is Paper Morning.